Okay. Good morning, world. How are we today? Today, Wednesday. Look, I am at risk of being accused of being a racist with this one, because we all know that you can't say particular things without being accused of being a racist nowadays. But hear me out. Hear me out. Now, look, we talked in a previous video about the fact that it is highly likely that the housing crisis in Australia, with lack of housing available, is exasperated, okay, to put it nicely, by the fact that immigration is so high into this country, and immigrants are assisted with housing, okay. Now, I didn't previously find proper figures about that, but I have now. Now, what do you think? Okay, because this is a lot more than what I thought. What do you think the rate of immigration in Australia is per year? Per year. Because, I grew up in a time where the government would jump up and down about a boat full of 20 people trying to rock up to the country without permission. So I was under a, false impression that our country took it pretty seriously, about people coming here, and, the rate of multiculturalism and the rate of population growth and just, all the rest of it, right? That comes with it. So what do you think the rate of immigration is to this country? I'm just going to do it like that together. Well, approximately between 2025 and 2026, I believe it was, the data showed that it was around 260,000 immigrants into Australia in 1 year. In 1 year. And the projection from 26 to 27 is, allegedly, let's just say, 40,000 less than that. Okay. Around, 220,000. And then you've got Pauline Hanson, One Nation, I believe it was her that said, that they would cap immigration at approximately 130,000 per year. And that sounds all right, doesn't it? Sounds a much lower number. But is the government building 130,000 homes per year for government housing, or to house all these immigrants that they're agreeing to import into our country? Or are they, living in homes that you could be living in? And yes, this whole video, some might say that I'm going to sound racist, and I am not racist. I am not racist. I think people from all parts of the world are fantastic. Everybody, you know, has their own jive, don't they? You know, and I'm not against any people, any country, any culture, you know, at all. What I am against is my country, and my children's country and my children's future being degraded by the issues that are caused with mass migration allowed in this country. Mass migration, okay? Because I had no idea actually that it was as high as what it is, and I bet a lot of people aren't. I bet a lot of people are not. Okay. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about, okay, because we already know that clearly it has impacted the housing situation, all right? That you cannot tell me that it is not. Because where are all these people living? Where are they living? Are they living in tents in parks? No, they're not. They're in homes. They're in apartments. They're in flats. They're in houses. Okay? And then you look at the number of people in Australia, Australian-born people, who are struggling to find a home, who are struggling to even get into the housing market to purchase, who are struggling to home themselves and find themselves in, you know, unstable accommodation or actually homeless on the street. And you tell me that it has nothing to do with the influx of immigrants to this country every year. 260,000 in 1 year. That is mind-boggling. And you know, once they've immigrated to this country, you know, they can also, you know, get on government benefits. You know, maybe they need assistance for a while, don't they? You know, and again, not poo-pooing people who need assistance from the government. I've been there. Okay? But you are also, immigration is not like solving problems. It's creating problems. Okay? Not only is it, you know, a fact that people of different cultures have issues with each other. Okay? And yeah, we're supposed to not tolerate that. Yeah, we're supposed to be a peaceful land where, you know, multiculturalism thrives and we all just get along like kumbaya. But that's not the facts. That's not truth. That's not reality. Okay? Why do you think we have, you know, what we call like targeted things happening from, you know, cross cultures, cross religions? Does multiculturalism work? Do communities that all share the same, you know, culture, language, religions, you know, it goes on. And yes, appearance comes in there as well. Do they find themselves in a more peaceful, harmonious environment? Are they safer? Do they feel safer? Is there less issues among them? You know? Yeah, in a perfect world, multiculturalism would not be a problem. Not be a problem. And I'm not saying that it should be a problem, but it is a problem. To a degree. And immigration is a problem to a degree. And, you know, it's not just housing. You know, these people are also, you know, possibly taking jobs that you want or that your now adult children could have got. You know, and then you've got half the jobs in the world are becoming automated, done by robots and AI programs. Jobs are already, you know, like, I would say less than what they used to be. The less number of jobs, the less number of places. And some will say, oh, well, you know, you can get a job in programming AI, you can get a job in computer things, you can get a job in trades. Yeah, well, not everyone's into that, are they? Not everyone's qualified for that. Okay? So you've got housing and you've got employment affected by immigration. What else is affected by immigration? What about placement in schools? In higher education schools like universities? What about the number of places that are available in medical schools per year, which currently is only at a rate of around 4,500 places in the entire country per year. And according to a data journal that I just read, a medical database journal I just read that was published in May 24, approximately 64% of students who received an offer from medical schools in Australia, 64.4% were Australian born, which is, you know, what, 36% were not Australian born. And of the 64% that were Australian born, do you think they were all white kids? No. Because there's plenty of immigrant Australians who have been living here for 20 years and have had children, and their children are encouraged to go to medical school to get themselves a well-paying career. And there is an issue in this country with being able to be seen by a Caucasian doctor. There is. And it's okay for you to have a preference to be seen, to see a doctor who makes you feel more comfortable because maybe of their ethnicity, maybe of their gender, maybe of the fact that you can converse with one another and understand one another without the difficulties that accents can impose on conversation. Does that make you a racist? Because in my personal preference, I would prefer to see a white female doctor. I would. And my current doctor is female, but she is not Caucasian. She's from a different country. She's given me her background. She offered it. I wasn't inquiring, by the way. And I am quite comfortable with my doctor. I think she's lovely. I think she's a lovely person. But sometimes there is a language barrier. Sometimes there is difficulty understanding one another. And it's a bit uncomfortable sometimes. Okay? Sometimes things just are easier, especially when you're wanting to get to the bottom of something and you want to be able to back and forth with somebody in an easy way. But with the rate of immigration, which also turns into, you know, generations born in Australia that are from, you know, a different culture, a different background, different language spoken at home. And then they're getting into medical schools and they're taking the jobs and they're taking the houses. Yeah, I might sound racist. But you know what I also might sound like? Somebody who is concerned for my own children's future. Because what does my own children's future look like with immigration in the hundreds of thousands per year? And education placements being snapped up, job placements being snapped up, houses being snapped up. You know, 40% of like home purchases in Australia is by like international owners as well. How many white Australians own their own house? How many white Australians do you think are like living a good life? You know? I know that, you know, people are coming to Australia. People come to Australia to, you know, live a better life. You know, and I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't be able to, you know, find a place in the world where they are safe and they can, you know, live a good life with their family, and have more opportunities and whatnot. But like, I feel a little bit like we're too open-armed in this country, and you know, it's to our detriment. And you know, I heard that, you know, even there were some countries that were in particular saying, oh, you know, basically like import us, you know, even by the millions, and we will help your housing crisis situation by being the labourers, you know, cheap labour is as well. And you know, I don't want to name drop countries' names who I've been told said that, but what's that doing? It's not because we are lacking, you know, white Australian men who want to be in the trade industries to build houses and things. That's actually a very popular choice for white men in this country, is to be a tradie. And you know, there's been so many conversations for years in this country about how jobs get taken by big crews of immigrants who can barely speak English. And you know, for that company who has, you know, truckloads of immigrants working for them, for that company to win the contract, and you know, their boys get the jobs, you know, and they get it done cheaper for the client. What are they doing? They've taken homes, they've taken jobs. Because now the white boys, who are also qualified in those trades, they're not getting paid to do it because they were going to charge themselves out at a particular rate, which is what they should be charged out at. But instead, there's been a big crew of immigrants brought in and they'll do it cheaper. That's truth. That is reality of what is happening. And that's just one example. And I really am not hateful towards any other people. This is not a white supremacist, racist deal over here, okay? This is a situation where I am shocked to learn the number of immigrants to this country each year. I'm shocked to learn that they also, immigrants on working visas are not leaving when they're supposed to be. And the follow-up on that is abysmal. And I'm just concerned about the future of this country, and I'm concerned about what it looks like for my children, what their futures look like. And I think that a lot of other people are feeling the same way. There was a recent poll done by Sky News, and I believe it was 42 or 43% of people had said that they want to see a drastic decrease in immigration. And then there was like a further 21% that said that they wanted to see at least some decrease. You've got politicians talking about all the same things that I'm talking about today, pointing out all these same things. And I'm not a highly educated person. I do a little bit of research and I see what's happening around me in real time in the world. And I think that most Australians are doing the same thing. And you can't let a country turn into the problems either of where all these immigrants came from. When I found out that India was the country of origin where most of the immigrants are coming from to Australia currently, and for the last 10 years that's been the case, where it's just like been steadily increasing. When I found that out, the first thing I did was look up social problems in India to see what are they trying to leave, right? And then all I could see was bang, 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 or continuously. Social problems in India, a sociology book printed by an Indian man, published by an Indian man, and talking about the drug and alcohol addictions, the unemployment, the crime, violence, and all these sort of issues, social issues that India has. And then Australia is just like, yeah, no, come over here. What do you think happens when you're importing people that are coming from a country with, it's not just a individual problem. That's even what it says, this book. It's a widespread problem. And I'm not saying that born and bred Aussies don't have alcoholism or violence in them or, social problems of our own. But we're also importing truckloads and truckloads of problems from other countries. 1 + 1 = 2. It's simple. I just think that it needs more thinking about. I just think that immigration should be paused completely for a while. How are we, tell me, the government, seriously, respond to, how are we housing them? How can you possibly have houses available for a woman and her children who is trying to escape a violent, abusive home from her husband or her children's father, how can you home her and her children if you already are bringing in 260,000 immigrants per year? How are you able to help a family who is struggling financially and they need a government home? You need to think about it more. I think everybody needs to think about it more. This is a problem. Anywho, I'm going to leave it there for today, but we might come back around to this topic because I'm looking more into this. I want more data. I want more statistics. I want to know, proposals from other parties over the years and what has been suggested and what has been denied and what changes could have been made that weren't agreed to by the government. What other countries have done, what are they currently doing? Do all countries have the same problem with immigration, or is it just Australia? Anywho, you all have a good day. Food for thought.